The House Senate K-12 Finance Policy Conference Committee will come to order. It's about 3 o'clock on May 4th, 2021. 1 o'clock, not our normal meeting time, 1 o'clock. Sorry. So today, members, we're going to do the walkthrough, the famous walkthrough of the bill that everybody waits for. We're going to have staff go through that, and we'll call them off as we go through. And then when we're done with the walkthrough and the spreadsheets, after we're done with all that, I ask members just to hold your questions. If you have any questions or comments, to hold them until the very end, after staff has gone through all this stuff. I would just like to open up with a brief comment about Senate position and thoughts and philosophy and priorities going through. It's been mentioned many times that our position was, of course, thinking at a very high level, similar to Chair Davney and Chair Richardson, is that recovery, relief, looking at opportunities and inequalities in the system. So with that, we developed kind of a philosophy surrounding the acronym SIMPLE: student-focused, innovation, mandate-free, parent involvement, literacy-driven, and efficiency. Simple. And we came up with about 5 or 6 priorities. Of course, all kids back in school all the time. That still is not the case. But districts and schools have made tremendous efforts to do that. Getting to literacy issue, both the House and Senate have been working on that for a while. Simple idea that will go a long way in addressing literacy concerns, not just dyslexia, but the larger literacy concerns. Number 3, teachers of color. Certainly inequality and inequity has been ignored for decades. Common sense and science, we got to fix that. And the House and Senate and the governor are in agreement in many areas of that. Next is mental health. It was a problem before we got into COVID. Social media being a main driver there for a lot of it. And then secondly, of course, kids being out of school causing much of that additional stress. That has been proven, and that is linking that to studies that have just been released recently released. Also, empowering our parents and educators, giving them opportunities to innovate and take charge of their kids' education in a more direct manner. Finally, equality and funding. As you know, property poor districts have been taking a brunt of this for years through the equalization and the tilted formula, plus some issues around safe schools, sparsity, and community education. So those are the 6 areas we looked at under SIMPLE, and we have directed our efforts at that. We have a lean, tight proposal on our side that has received a lot of support from educators across the state for a variety of reasons. Of course, there are things they don't agree with, but many things, the innovation and the lack of mandates is very appealing. Finally, I'll say that we all have agreed to some extent that there are problems with the system, that there are inequalities and there's gaps and there's shortfalls, but yet some people tend to praise it. So I sometimes get confused myself where we're at. I believe we have a lot of great educators in the state, and we do have good schools in the state, a lot of great educators and a lot of great schools. And there obviously are challenges and problems that we can focus on and drive to. The entire system is not collapsed, but it is difficult to envision a system where people say is falling apart and many shortfalls, then asking the system to fix itself. It's akin to politicians wanting to vote for term limits. I don't think it's a thing that necessarily makes sense in the end. So we're trying to get at that from different ways, both the House and the Senate, trying to get at those longstanding problems and inequalities. We obviously have our spot and our position, and the House has theirs, and we're going to we will have an agreement in the end to to address the needs of our state's students and our educators. So that was just my quick 5-6 minute overview. We will have an agreement in the end. We will. There's a lot of things we can agree on, and they're already part of these two bills. And today we're going to walk through and see that. So with that, members, thank you for your indulgence. Again, we'll have time after the presentation for people to ask questions, for members to ask questions or give comments. So with that, I have, yeah, what? Representative Krisha, you have something to say?
I do, Mr. Chair, if I could just have 30 seconds.
Sure.
So I wanted to thank the DFL majority for the presentations yesterday. I had a chance to really digest that, and I think there's a lot we should think about. One of the things that struck me, and I think this ties into you, Senator Chamberlain, and that is during one of the first presentations, there was the analogy of the restaurant. And I thought about that a lot, and I thought about that in the context of education. And I think one viewpoint that has to be recognized, or at least talked about, is the school choice, whatever choice means. And I'm trying to take the political side of it out. You mentioned parental control, but when we put parents in a position where they're standing outside of an education system and not able to get access to all of the educational opportunities, that does create a system that needs to be changed. And so I thought a lot about that analogy and how we've heard from a lot of parents from different backgrounds, different neighborhoods, different communities saying, I want my kids to be able to have the same choices that other parents are having, whether that be charter schools, private schools, other delivery methods. So I just wanted to bring that front and center because I think that if we don't acknowledge that choice is a part of equalizing education, I think we missed the conversation on one level. So thank you, Mr. Chamberlain.
Thank you, Senator Representative Krisha. All right, members, thank you for your time and indulgence. So what I have on my list here, staff, we'll start with general education. I think this is on the agenda, so it was sent around to everybody. General education, I'm going to start with, I have Mr. Strom and Ms. Hoffer. And I show here that Mr. Strom will go first, and then Mr. Strom and Ms. Hoffer will alternate as we go through the first article. If I have that correct, Mr. Strom, you are...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, there's two sets of documents in front of you that Ms. Hofer and I will walk through. One of those is the side-by-side language. That's a 2-column document-oriented landscape for you. The House file 1065, the third engrossment, is on the left, and the Senate file identified as the first unofficial engrossment of that same bill is on the right. That's the first of two documents. That document has the actual language of the bills in it. The second document is the summary that's been prepared by House and Senate nonpartisan staff. And that summary is a 3-column summary. Again, the House is on the left, the Senate on the right. And in the center column of the summary are some notes that'll hopefully help members in their deliberations. They'll identify the provision, whether it's same or similar, sometimes address the differences, or if there's no comparable provision, it'll state so. In terms of the format that we'll use, I'll start, and then as provisions shift to the Senate side, Ms. Hofer will jump in, and then if they go back to the House side, we'll shift back that way, Mr. Chair, if that's acceptable for you. Mr. Chair, members, let's start then with Article 1, General Education Revenue. Section 1, Article 1 of the House bill is the absence from school for religious observances. This provision is the same in both bills with just very slightly different wording. Section 2 has to do with the school calendar and allows the school board to consider a community's religious or cultural observances when adopting a school calendar. Ms. Hofer may want to speak to the Senate provision here, as it also ties into the learning year flexible year provisions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Strom. As Mr. Strom pointed out, the Senate does include a very similar provision to the House, but also includes a removal of the flexible learning year from the exception to the Labor Day start. On the bottom of page R1, is a Senate only provision. The actual change is on page R2. This relates to area learning centers, and under current law, an area learning center must be established in cooperation of at least 2 districts unless the district is located in a city of the first class. This removes that exception and allows any district to establish an area learning center by itself, but does encourage those to be established in cooperation with other districts. In the middle of page R2, section 2, 3, and then 4, which is onto page R3, are all related to non-public pupil aid. So what these 3 sections do is they would allow non-public pupil aid for guidance and counseling services that are provided to elementary school non-public pupils and elementary and secondary tribal contract students. And I will pass it back over to Mr. Strom in the middle of page R3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Hofer. Section 3 of the House bill relates to the English Language Learner Program. And this is one of 2 sections that allows a child who's between the ages of 3 and 5 to participate in programs in the same manner as an enrolled student would. This essentially allows a early learning child to participate in the English Learner Program. Section 4 is a change to the early learning formula. This section increases the formula allowance. There are 2 parts to that formula, the basic formula and a concentration formula. The first part increases that by $51 from $704 to $755 per English learner student. And the second part of that formula changes the concentration amount from a maximum of $250 per English learner student to $536 per English learner student. Section 5 of the House bill allows the requires the Commissioner of Education to provide an annual report of American Indian student data using the state count of American Indian students. You'll see the state count mentioned in a few places. A few years back, the federal government changed its method for counting American Indian students. In part, this was due to the addition to federal data of the class 2 or more races. And so many American Indian students in Minnesota now show up in the 2 or more races category on the federal data. And this is one of several provisions that would keep in place for the American Indian Aid Program and some other purposes, the state definition, which is the more expansive definition and of American Indian student. Section 6 is similar in that it requires that state count to be used to calculate the American Indian education aid.
Mr. Chair and members, on the bottom of page R5 is Senate Section 5. This section expands the definition of shared time pupil units to those non-public students who are attending public school career and technical education programs that are offered outside of the regular school day for secondary credit.
Mr. Chair, members, Article 1, Section 7 of the House bill makes permanent the 4,000 seats that are available and have been available for the last 4 years for the voluntary pre-K School Readiness Plus program. Those seats are due to expire by statute at the end of fiscal year 21 unless otherwise extended. Section 8 has to do with the calculation of compensatory revenue pupil units. There's 2 parts to this change. The first of those is just a corresponding change to the earlier provision that makes the VPK seats permanent. The second part of the change has a significant fiscal impact, and what this provision does is it increases the compensatory revenue earned by each child at any site that serves more than 80% free and reduced lunch students. That change begins in fiscal year 2022. And when we get to the fiscal worksheets, Ms. Adrian and Ms. Hofer will walk through the costs of these various financial proposals. Section 9 of the House bill has to do with the calculation of the English learner pupil unit. This is part and parcel of the change to the EL formulas. The increase in the denominator essentially is part of what balances out the change. And again, when we get to the fiscal worksheet, Ms. Adrians will highlight the costs associated with this provision. Section 10 is the basic formula allowance. The provision in the House bill increases the basic formula allowance by 2% per year beginning in fiscal year 2022. Then for fiscal years 24 and 25 increases that allowance by 0.5% per year. And then beginning in fiscal year 26 links the basic formula allowance to the growth in inflation for the previous year. Section 11 in the House bill is similar in the first part of the changes to the Senate bill. Both are essentially providing summer school purposes for students who are in a residential facility. Currently, because those students are not voluntarily in that program, the way our extended time formula works is such that they're not counted for summer school revenue. This provision would allow those students to be counted for summer school purposes. The second part of the House change is to link the extended time formula allowance, which is currently set at a flat dollar amount of $5,117 per pupil, to the growth in the basic formula allowance beginning in fiscal year 2024. Section 12 of the House bill increases the equalization just very slightly for the local optional revenue program. The House, when it goes through its budgeting process, is required to have a zero levy target, or has been in the recent years, which means that any provisions that increase levies must be accompanied by a provision that decreases another levy by the same amount, so that the baseline levy amount is the overall levy amount. The increase in the local optional revenue is the tool that the House has used this year to keep the overall levies at the baseline level for taxes payable in 2022 and later. Section 13 is a corresponding change to the basic skills revenue. English learner revenue and compensatory revenue are the two elements of the basic skills program, and this section reflects the change in the formula amounts for the English learner program. Section 14 of the House and Section 7 of the Senate, have to do with the transportation formula. As members know, school districts are eligible for transportation sparsity revenue, which is based on the overall sparsity of the school district. For some school districts, because they may serve a large geographic area but have a fair-sized city in the center or at a part in the corner of the district, don't receive much of the sparsity revenue. And a provision was added a few years ago that provided for those districts an additional amount of revenue equal to 18.2% of the difference between their costs and their funding for transportation purposes. The Senate increases that provision to 70%. The House increases that provision to 30%. Section 15 of the House and Section 8 of the Senate have some similar provisions in them, but others that are not. The House requires that all compensatory revenue be used on programs that are evidence-based best practices. The House provision also authorizes a school district to transfer from its compensatory reserve to its food service fund for the amount of any budget shortfall in the food fund caused by the school participating in the community eligibility provision program. Finally, then there's both the House and Senate remove some obsolete language and update program names and references. Section 16 of the House bill is another provision related to compensatory revenue. Under current law, at least half of the compensatory revenue must be used at the site where that revenue is earned. The House proposes to increase this to 80% of the compensatory revenue, which must be kept at the school site. Section 17 of the House and 9 of the Senate are the same, and these both require a functional reporting as well as the UFARS reporting of compensatory expenditures so that they can more easily be identified as to what category the funds are actually in. Sometimes the UFARS accounting system, which works very well for financial management, isn't as good as describing how money is actually used in a way that's easily recognizable to the readers of the UFARS reports.
Mr. Chair and members, at the top of page R14 is a Senate-only provision. Section 10 modifies the referendum equalization levy. This proposal modifies both the first-tier referendum equalization levy and the second-tier referendum equalization levy. Essentially what this does is this would reduce the referendum levy for districts that have relatively lower property wealth and provide roughly an equal amount of referendum equalization aid in return. And this proposal aims to make the effort required by each district similar in order to achieve similar amounts of referendum revenue.
Mr. Chair, members, the next provision also has to do with the referendum levy. On the House side, Article 1, Section 18 allows referendum levies to be renewed by the school board as long as certain criteria are met. Those include that it must be renewed for the same amount of money, the term must be the same, and a hearing must be held before the renewal can happen by board action. Section 19 of the House bill and Section 11 of the Senate bill are the same. These clarify a reference and the years used to calculate the excess tax increment aid amounts. Sometimes when when a community has a tax increment finance district set up, there can be an excess. There's a requirement that a portion of that excess be distributed to school districts. And this provision just ensures that the calculation will run more smoothly by updating the years that are used for determining the aid and levy shares of that. Section 20 is a provision that changes the reference under current law. A portion of a family's income tax refund may be assigned for certain purposes. There's an appeal process built into that, and this change, which came from the department's bill, changes the party for whom the appeal is made to, should there be a disagreement about the assignment of the income tax refund. Section 21 of the Senate or of the House bill and 12 of the Senate bill are the same. And again, this is to do with the tax increment finance reporting timelines. And finally, Mr. Chair, sections 22 of the House bill and sections 13 of the Senate bill are the appropriation sections. And we'll see the details of those when Ms. Hofer and Ms. Adrians walk us through the fiscal spreadsheets. Mr. Chair, that's it for Article 1.
Thank you. So next is Education Excellence, Ms. Para and Ms. Marie Lewis. They will again be switching back and forth. And we have Ms. Para, I believe you're going first, if I got that right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'll start with House provisions in Article 2, Education Excellence. Section 1 allows educational data to be disclosed to tribal nations about tribally enrolled or descendant students to the extent necessary for the tribal nation to support the educational attainment of the student. Section 2 requires student records transmitted when a student transfers schools to include pupil withdrawals and services that a student needs to prevent inappropriate behavior from recurring. Section 3 amends the compulsory instruction requirements to require instruction in Indigenous education for students in public and non-public schools. Section 4 modifies the requirement for homeschool instructors.
And Mr. Chair and members, on the bottom of R4 begins Senate sections, although sections 1 and 2 here were already described in Article 1, so I won't describe them again. But then at the bottom of R5 is section 3, which does 3 things. The first part is in paragraph A, where it relates to the changes in the flexible learning year, where it was a commissioner approved program and the bill changes it to be a school board approved program. Paragraph B is related to the change of e-learning days to distance learning days and allowing for an unlimited number of days in a school year. And then paragraph C, which is at the bottom or at the top of R6, is a change in the definition of what hours of instruction are, and that includes all learning opportunities and services designed to support a student. Section 5 is the language at the towards the bottom of R6 allows for patriotic societies to come and present in schools, and then prohibits school or groups that are described as hate groups from participating.
Mr. Chair and members, section 5, starting on page R6 of the side-by-side. The next two sections will are in regards to academic standards, state academic standards, and section 5 requires the commissioner to modify the rule for statewide standards to be focused on the experiences and perspectives of all students, including Indigenous people and people of color within and beyond the United States. Section 6 requires social studies standards to include Indigenous education and sets requirements for Indigenous education curriculum. It also requires districts to adopt the state art standards. Currently, they can adopt local standards. And it adds media arts to the list of arts areas that public elementary and middle schools must offer. Section 7 requires advice from the following stakeholders in developing rigorous core academic standards: the Tribal Nations Education Committee and Minnesota's Tribal Nations and Communities, youth enrolled in kindergarten through grade 12 districts and charter schools, and other stakeholders that represent the ethnic, racial, and geographic diversity of Minnesota, including gender and sexual orientation, immigrant status, and religious and linguistic background. Section 8 clarifies the commissioner's authority to amend rules on academic standards. Section 9 has several changes, and that starts on page R9. The first change, it requires the Commissioner of Education to revise and embed Indigenous education standards that include the contributions of American Indian tribes and communities into the state academic standards and graduation requirements. It requires the standards to be consistent with recommendations from the Tribal Nations Education Committee. Second, it requires the Commissioner to embed ethnic studies into all required state academic standards during the review and revision of the standards. And finally, it pushes the next review of academic standards and benchmarks for physical education from the 22-23 school year to the 26-27 school year. The Senate has this last provision relating to physical education. Section 10, graduation requirements. It states that Algebra 1 taken in 8th grade does not bear high school credit. It requires social studies credits to include Indigenous education and credit for a course in government and citizenship in either 11th or 12th grade for students that start 9th grade in the 22-23 school year and later, or an advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or other rigorous course in government and citizenship. It requires art standards to be state rather than local standards to reflect the change discussed above. It also reduces the number of elective credits from 7 down to 6.5, and requires 1/2 credit of physical education. Finally, it requires the district to offer a course for credit in government and citizenship to 11th and 12th graders starting in the 22-23 school year. Section 11, Codes and New Statute, that's starting on page R11 for ethnic studies. So subdivision 1 has a definition of ethnic studies, and subdivision 2 requires the department to employ ethnic studies staff to provide expertise to adopt the ethnic studies standards into academic standards and helping districts and charter schools to implement the standards. Section 12, the next several sections amend the World's Best Workforce statute. The first section, this is section 12, it adopts several new definitions. ethnic studies curriculum, anti-racist, culturally sustaining, institutional racism, and on track for graduation. The Senate has the on track for graduation definition, and you can see those on page R13. I think they're slightly different. I don't know if Ms. Lewis wants to speak to that.
Sure. The Senate's definition for on track for graduation means that a student at the end of grade 9 has earned at least 5 credits and received no more than 1 failing grade in a semester in some particular courses. And then the student is off track if they have failed to meet those any of those criteria. Then on to then section, was it 8 of the Senate file and 13 of the House file? At the the bottom of R13 is the what you see on R13 is the same for both, but then the Senate has a requirement that's also in the House file about performance measures being reported for all student subgroups.
Mr. Chair and members, in addition to that language, the House requires that a district that offers advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or dual enrollment programs report on certain performance measures starting in the 23-24 school year. Section 14 of the House on page R14, continuing with the World's Best Workforce Statute, requires that districts' plans include ethnic studies curriculum and anti-racist and culturally sustaining curriculum. Requires a plan to identify suggested and required materials, resources, sample curriculum, pedagogical skills that accurately reflect the diversity of the state of Minnesota, and modifies other plan requirements. And this would be effective for all strategic plans reviewed and updated after enactment. Section 15 is the last of these World's Best Workforce provisions, and that's on page R15. It requires the District Advisory Committee to recommend strategies regarding curriculum and learning and work environments. Section 16 codes a new statute establishing a grant program to support strategies relating to equity. It would require grants to be used to support equitable anti-racist educational practices. And there are several definitions in subdivision 2, including anti-racist, equitable, institutional racism, and structural. Section 17, which you'll see on page R17, amends the advanced placement of AP and IB programs. So the House modifies the requirement that school boards adopt a 3-year plan to establish a new IB program or expand or create a new AP program. Rather than having that plan to begin with, they'll would only need to have that plan within 90 days of receiving a grant rather than to qualify for the grant. It also gives priority for advanced placement grants to grantees who add or expand offerings of AP or computer science principles, and caps grant awards $75,000 per district or charter school. I'll let Ms. Lewis explain the Senate provision.
And Mr. Chair, members, the two sections or the sections are similar. The Senate has the language about the 3-year plan that Ms. Power described, but the if you go to section 10 of the Senate file on R19, the Senate file has a $150,000 per district or charter school versus the $75,000 dollar amount for the grant program.
Mr. Chair and members, the next provision is the House provision, section 18. Is the gifted and talented statute, and you'll see that on page R21. Wherever it currently refers to gifted and talented programs, it's changed to say programs and services. And it requires identification assessments and procedures to be sensitive and equitable to underrepresented groups and be coordinated for optimal identification of programs and services for underrepresented groups. Section 19 was a new statute. This is the implementation of Indigenous education for all curriculum. It requires a school identified for support under either federal or state law as needing support and improvement to assess the quality of implementation of Indigenous education for all students, include proposed changes, additions and enhancements to the implementation of Indigenous education in the school's improvement plan, ensure that Indigenous curriculum is included in the plan and activities in the second and third year of the improvement plan, engage tribal nations and Indigenous families in planning and implementation of improvement plans in schools and districts if there are more than 10 American Indian students, and provide evidence to the Commissioner of Education that the implementation factors have been completed. The Commissioner of Education is then required to provide monitoring and auditing personnel to coordinate within the department and with all Indigenous education programs in schools and districts, provide professional development for teachers instituting Indigenous curriculum, provide monitoring of curriculum materials and teaching practices regarding tribal history, culture, and government of local tribes for mutual awareness among tribes and districts to aid in understanding the importance of accurate and tribally endorsed curriculum, provide ongoing support to schools and districts on curriculum and best teaching practices, and to school boards to identify and adopt curriculum that includes tribal experiences and perspectives to engage Indigenous students and ensure that all students learn about history, culture, government, and experiences of Indigenous peers and neighbors. Refer school or district's non-compliance with Indigenous curriculum requirements to the Department of Human Rights, and report to the Commissioner and to the Education Committee's legislature and Minnesota's tribal leaders. Section 20, statewide local assessments. It eliminates requirements that the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments, MCAs, include below grade and above grade test items and definitions relating to above grade and below grade test items. Section 21 requires the Commissioner to develop and publish security and privacy policies and procedures on remote testing. Section 22 requires districts and schools selected to participate in the National Assessment of Educational Progress or similar assessments to do so. Section 23 modifies the demographic categories for student data reporting. Groups would be determined on a 10-year cycle using the American Community Survey using 5-year data sets. The next update to data used to determine the most populous groups would be implemented in 2026 using the 2021 to 2025 data set. Section 24 strikes an obsolete reference to dates of federal law.
And Mr. Chair, members, on the middle of page R28 is the Senate provision, Section 7, which prohibits a school that's a member of the Minnesota State High School League to have a student who's male participate on a team for a design for women or girls.
Mr. Chair and members, Section 25 on the House side at the bottom of page R28 prohibits public schools from having American Indian mascots. It allows them to seek an exemption from this prohibition from the Tribal Nations Education Committee and the Indian Affairs Council. Section 26 is the first of several provisions relating to student discipline. They would all be effective for the 21-22 school year and later unless noted otherwise. So the first of these, Section 26, which starts on page R29, defines in-school suspension and out-of-school suspension and requires an out-of-school suspension to include a readmission plan. Section 27 defines non-exclusionary disciplinary policies and practices as alternatives to removal or dismissal that require school officials to intervene in, redirect, and support a student's behavior before removal or dismissal. And it lists examples of non-exclusionary disciplinary policies and practices. Section 28 defines a pupil withdrawal agreement and limits such an agreement to 12 months. Section 29 prohibits dismissal of a student in kindergarten through grade 3 unless non-exclusionary discipline measures have been exhausted and there's an ongoing serious safety threat to the child or others. I'll let Ms. Lewis explain the difference with the Senate provision.
And Mr. Chair, members, the Senate language actually is on the top of R31, where a student that's in kindergarten through grade 3 may only be dismissed where that child poses a threat to themselves or to others.
Mr. Chair and members, Section 30 of the House language on page R31 states that alternative education services are required when a student is suspended more than 5 consecutive school days. I'm sorry, I must have skipped section 30, which requires a school to use non-exclusionary disciplinary policies and practices before dismissal proceedings or pupil withdrawal agreements. Section 32 on page R32 requires the administrator to ensure alternative education services are provided when a pupil is suspended more than 5 consecutive school days. Section 33 requires school officials to give suspended students the opportunity to complete all schoolwork assigned during the suspension and receive full credits for the assignments. It encourages the principal to designate a school employee as a liaison to work with the student's teachers to allow the student to receive timely course materials and complete assignments and receive feedback. Section 34 requires written notice of intent to impose an expulsion to describe the non-exclusionary disciplinary policies and practices offered to the students to avoid the expulsion, and requires the district to inform parents that the department's list of legal resources is on the department website. Section 35 requires an admission or readmission plan to include measures to improve the student's behavior and lists optional elements of the plan. It requires the plan to include parental involvement in the admission or readmission process. Section 36 requires districts to report on pupil withdrawal agreements and non-exclusionary disciplinary practices to the commissioner. Section 37, policies to be established. This requires the commissioner to issue guidance on engaging stakeholders to review and revise discipline policies that are restorative and responsive. It requires the policies to include non-exclusionary disciplinary policies and practices and to emphasize providing multi-tiered supports to students. It requires schools to ensure students are getting alternative education services and to make sure students who have been expelled or excluded or withdrawn are on track for readmission with peers and have information on accessing mental health services.
And Mr. Chair, members, the Senate Section 13, which the new language is really on R35, requires a school board to have annual stakeholders group meeting to review the district's discipline policy. And then in paragraph B, that stakeholder group can make recommendations to the school board regarding changes to the policy.
Mr. Chair, members, section 38 on the House, that's page R35. It defines a prone restraint and prohibits a district employee or agent, including a school resource officer, from using prone restraints to reform or punish unacceptable conduct. It prohibits a district employee or agent, including a school resource officer, from using some physical holdings. Section 39 requires a school board to annually review and revise the school discipline policy and include in the policy parameters for when input into discipline decisions is allowed. It eliminates mandatory grounds for removal and requires the policy to instead include provisions on addressing willful conduct that endangers persons or property, and eliminates the requirement that the policy include minimum consequences for violations of the code of conduct. It requires the policy to prohibit use of exclusionary practices to address attendance and truancy issues. This section will be effective July 1, 2022.
And Mr. Chair, members, the Senate language on the middle R36 is a subdivision of the prior section that I talked about, and this is requirement that the school district's discipline policy has to have a process for a parent or guardian or student to request a review of an imposed suspension. Then section 2, which the new language is actually on R38, requires if a student is removed from class, a principal has to remove that student from class for at least 3 school days following the day of the incident. And then the student may only return to that class after being given assistance to prevent the inappropriate behavior from reoccurring. Section 14 from the Senate file strikes one word on R38. You can see it 23.25. In the definition of comprehensive scientifically based reading instruction, it removes balanced instruction from that definition. And then if you go down to R39, Senate Section 15, allows for a school board and a non-public school to come to a mutual agreement and with a written plan for providing non-public pupil transportation to the non-public students.
Mr. Chair and members, the next several sections relate to post-secondary enrollment, Enrollment Options Act. So that's the PSEO Act. Section 40, starting at the bottom of page R39 with the new language on page R40, prohibits an institution that makes admissions decisions based on a student's race, color, creed, and certain other grounds from enrolling PSEO students. Section 41 requires a post-secondary institution to notify a participating student's school as soon as practicable if the student withdraws from the course or stops attending the course.
And Mr. Chair, members, Section 16 of the Senate file allows a 10th grade student that qualifies to enroll in a career and tech ed course under PSEO to enroll in more than one of such classes in their first semester of the 10th grade year. Then there's both bodies have language on this next one. Section 17 for the Senate is a statement that the May 30th deadline for informing your school that you plan to participate in PSEO, that deadline does not apply if the district doesn't meet the requirements for dissemination of information.
Mr. Chair and members, the House language is different. It requires instead a student participating in PSEO to notify the district of the student's intent to enroll for the fall term by May 30th. For the spring term, the deadline is October 30th. Section 43 limits students' participation in PSEO to the earlier of either the end of the school year in which the student's graduation requirements are met, or the end of the school year in which the pupil's peers graduate.
And Senate Section 18 on page R42 removes the limitation on post-secondary institutions' ability to advertise PSEO programs on financial grounds. And then it strikes obsolete language that was limited to the 2014-2015 through 2019-2020 school year. Section 19 of the Senate file, which is between R42 and R43, clarifies that a student that's enrolled in a PSEO course is still allowed to participate in high school activities and have leadership roles or participate in national organizations sponsored by the pupil's high school. Then both bodies have something on the next thing, but they're different. Senate Section 20 is a requirement for a school board to adopt an identical policy regarding weighted grade point averages as it does for post-secondary enrollment students as comparable courses and concurrent enrollment.
Mr. Chair and members, the House language requires a participating student to provide the student's school with a copy of the student's interim or non-final grades in the PSEO course during the academic term. Section 45, which starts on page R44, reduces the withdrawal and absence periods from the first 14 to the first 10 business days of the quarter of the semester, which would accelerate the time the department stops payment to a post-secondary institution when the student withdraws or stops attending a class.
And then on page R45, Senate Section 21 allows for a school district to be reimbursed for transportation costs for PSEO students that are considered low income.
Mr. Chair and members, Section 46 defines hybrid learning as using blended learning in a way that combines scheduled in-person instruction and distance learning. And this is part of the Online Learning Options Act. Section 47, also part of online learning, places the $250 fee that the Department of Education receives from an online learning provider when the department approves the online learning program, and the $50 fee assessed when the district changes a course's designation. It would place those amounts in the special revenue fund, in the account in the special revenue fund, and annually appropriate the money from the account to the Commissioner of Education for costs associated with administering and monitoring online and digital learning programs.
And then the language is mainly on R48, but the section begins at bottom of R47. It's Senate Section 23. And this is the beginning of several sections related to the changes to the flexible learning year program. This section strikes obsolete language and language relating to future approvals by the commissioner. Sections 24 through 27, which get you to the top of R49, all are directly related to the commissioner being removed from having to give approval and allowing the school boards to approve their own flexible learning year programs.
Mr. Chair and members, section 48 on the House side starts on page R49. It strikes reference to the extended school day calendar and eliminates a provision that allows a student to participate in the program and accelerate attainment of grade level or graduation requirements. Section 49 strikes charter schools from the statute describing student planning for students participating in learning year programs. Charter schools are not authorized to operate a learning year program.
Then on page R50, it's Senate Section 28, and it establishes the Rural Career and Technical Education Consortium grants. And then on line 32.5, it talks about what those groups should do, and that they need to focus on development of courses and programs that encourage collaborations, develop new career and technical programs focusing on industry sectors that fuel the rural regional economy, facilitate the development of highly trained and knowledgeable students with technical and workplace skills that are needed by the employers in the region, improve access to career and tech ed programs by developing partnerships with businesses and industry leaders, increasing awareness of the availability and benefit of career and tech ed programs and training opportunities, and then provide capital startup costs for those programs. And then it permits them to address the teacher shortage crisis in CTE and provide transportation reimbursement grants. Then it also establishes or allows a service cooperative to establish a rural CTE advisory committee to advise that the cooperative administration of the program, and then allows them to seek outside sources of private funding to supplement the state funding. And then there's a report that's required if they receive funding under this section, and then consulting with the commissioner by the service cooperative organization about awarding grants to the consortium.
Mr. Chair and members, section 50 on page R51 on the House side is the first of several provisions relating to American Indian education programs. So the first one of these, section 50, modifies the description of instruction in American Indian language. You can see on line 6628 that it strikes the word supplemental. Section 51, which is on page R52, requires a district or participating school to meet the unique educational and culturally related academic needs of American Indian people, and to have American Indian student accountability factors be the same or higher for American Indian students than their non-Indian peers before a district can use the American Indian education aid for programs for non-Indian students. Section 52 defines American Indian students for purposes of the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. Section 53 requires a majority of the members of that committee to be parents of American Indian children. Section 54 clarifies that the duties of the Director of American Indian Education can be performed by the director's designee with oversight by the director. Section 55 requires a district or charter school to allow an American Indian student to wear American Indian regalia, tribal regalia, or objects of cultural significance at graduation ceremonies. Section 56 qualifies a program operated by a cooperative unit for American Indian Education Aid. For fiscal years 24 and later, it increases the American Indian Education Aid allowance and school district minimum by the growth in the general education basic formula allowance for that year. Section 57 modifies the achievement and integration plan requirements, and it requires plans to include strategies to address institutional racism. This will be effective for all plans reviewed and updated after enactment.
Mr. Chair, members, on the R58 and R59, it's sections 29 and 30 of the Senate section. I will wait until we get to, I think it's Article 4. The House had a whole article on charter schools, and these two provisions match up over there, or at least were pulled over there. So I'll let you wait to hear about charter schools then.
Mr. Chair and members, Section 58 on the House side, starting on page R60. This broadens the application of restrictive procedure statutes from only students with disabilities to all students. Section 59 requires an oversight committee to review additional information regarding the use of restrictive procedures. It requires reporting on the use of the debriefing process that follows use of a restrictive procedure, and it prohibits a restrictive procedure from being used in a child younger than 5.
Mr. Chair, members, on R65 is Senate Section 31, and that is a change to the definition of average daily membership to include distance learning and distance learning days in that definition. Then Section 32, which is on R66, is actually pulled into the state agencies article and matched up with the House section over there. So I'll kind of wait for that description too.
Mr. Chair and members, Section 60, it's on the top of page R67, expands permission to light tobacco as part of a traditional Indian spiritual or cultural ceremony beyond adults. It allows an American Indian person to carry a medicine pouch containing loose tobacco in observance of traditional spiritual or cultural practices, and expands the definition of Indian for purposes of this section.
Mr. Chair, members, then Section 33 of the Senate file is changes to the Innovation Research Zone program. It's now entitled the Education Innovation Zone program. Then also allows for new models of evaluation, assessment, and accountability. And the programs can improve teacher and principal mentoring and evaluation. Also granting high school diplomas to a student who meets graduation requirements that demonstrates preparation for secondary education or career, secondary education or career consistent with the world's best workforce goals. And then also has completed 4 years of high school and then completed at least 1 year of post-secondary education at a 2 or 4 year college through concurrent enrollment, advanced placement, IB courses, or has completed a career certification up to the apprentice level of the program. It also allows for using various provisions to provide education using such as independent study, getting the standard adult high school diploma, and experiential and applied learning to their programs. It allows students in grades 10, 11, or 12 to participate in CET programs after school, weekends, or during school breaks, including summers. But at that point, also being included in the average daily membership, but limiting that up to 1. Also takes out the advisory panel that was established that guided the commissioner on selecting programs for approval, and then also removes the commissioner's approval of education innovation zone programs. Then the next section is something that would be covered in the fiscal tracking sheets with the tribal contract school aid.
Mr. Chair, members, yes, 61, Section 61 and 62 on the House side are both adjusting appropriations. The first one is for the tribal contract school aid, and the second is the same-based pilot program. Section 63 is the one-time American Indian Tribal Contract Compensatory Aid, and that's increasing the American Indian Tribal Contract Aid for fiscal year 22. Section 64 extends the time for the Commissioner of Education to post accountability data for the 2020-2021 school year to October 1, 2021. Section 65 establishes a working group to review distance and hybrid instruction and make recommendations to increase flexibility for districts and charters to implement instruction models that meet students' learning needs. It establishes the members of the working group, and it requires the commissioner to convene the group, provide technical administrative assistance. Section 66. The House and Senate have different provisions relating to distance learning. The House, this is a provision that starts on page R75. The House defines distance learning and hybrid learning. It allows a district or charter school to offer distance and hybrid learning options to enroll students who would choose to participate in distance or hybrid learning. And I should note this, the House provision would be effective only for the next school year, the 2021-2022 school year. A district or charter school offering distance or hybrid learning would have to ensure access to digital devices and in-home broadband, employ licensed teachers to provide instruction to a maximum of 40 students in an online course, have an appropriately licensed administrator overseeing the education program, provide curriculum that meets state standards, follow the school calendar, provide special education services and English learner instruction. It would also prohibit a district or charter school participating in distance learning from generating revenue as an online learning provider. The provision prohibits simultaneous instruction and requires a district or charter school to provide 30 additional minutes of preparation time to a teacher providing instruction to students in person and to students doing online learning at different times.
Mr. Chair, members, on R75, Senate Section 4, the changes are ongoing changes. The Senate renames the e-learning days to distance learning days and allows them to be done in whether it's due to weather or a health or natural disaster emergency that's determined by the school board or the superintendent. And it allows for, there used to be a cap on the number of days, allows for an unlimited number of distance learning days in a school year. Then on page R76, section 22, the Senate adds a distance learning option, which is another ongoing change that allows a school board to offer a full distance learning option to its enrolled students. And it may be part of, it's allowing that to be part of the school's curriculum offerings and allows the student to be able to complete all their learning expectations and graduation requirements through distance learning.
Mr. Chair and members, starting on page R77 is section 67 of the House bill. It requires a district to use up to 0.5% of its staff development revenue or its literacy incentive aid on professional development for teachers on the science of reading. Section 68 increases American Indian Tribal Contract aid for fiscal year 2021 to adjust for declining enrollment between fiscal years 2020 and 2021. This percentage adjustment reflects the same adjustment in declining enrollment aid for school districts and charter schools that the House included in a separate bill. Section 69 is on academic standards. Subdivision 1 relates to social studies standards. It requires the commissioner to include personal finance standards in the social studies standards that are currently under review. It requires the commissioner to also include benchmarks in government and citizenship in 11th or 12th grade in social studies. The second subdivision requires the commissioner to suspend the review and revision of academic standards and benchmarks in math and implementation of revised physical education and art standards until June 1, 2022. It allows the commissioner to support schools and districts with future implementation, continue current rulemaking, and develop future statewide assessments in science and reading. It requires the commissioner to implement review and revision of math standards and benchmarks beginning in the 2022-2023 school year.
Mr. Chair, members, the Senate Section 34, which most languages on, or all the languages on R78, is a direction to the commissioner to suspend any ongoing review or revision of academic standards or implementation of revised academic standards until June 1, 2023. The next section is Senate Section 35, is providing a grant to Live More, Screen Less for digital well-being. The organization must use the grant to support their digital well-being resource hub, as well as their network of organizations where they identify key local and national organizations focused on the aspects of healthy screen use and healthy use development, and then a Train the Trainer this series, as well as peer-to-peer training development. Senate Section 36, several pages long, and that is the Education Savings Accounts for Students Act. Provides definitions, but then also if you go to page R80, it describes the program and that an eligible student qualifies to participate in the program if their parent signs an agreement that the parent will arrange for provision of educational services for the student in at least the subjects of reading, writing, mathematics, social studies, and science, and that they are not to enroll their participating student in a public school or public charter school for as long as their student participates in the Education Savings Account program. Then the parent must use the funds deposited in that student's account for various listed expenses related to the educational services that they are acquiring for their student. Then they cannot receive cash payments or cash equivalents from refunds or rebates from the provider of services that received payment from the account. And then there's provisions to prevent fraudulent use of the funds and making sure that the funds remain in the student's account until they either are enrolled in a public school or graduate, and then upon graduation, the remaining amounts in the ESA may be used for post-secondary courses. Then there's also the commissioner determining the amount that's going to be deposited in each student's ESA, and that's done on a first come first served basis. There's a calculation for the commissioner to determine the ESA amount that's based on the average general education aid per adjusted pupil unit. And then there's a aid adjustment, one-time aid adjustment to that serving school districts general education aid in the fiscal year following the student's withdrawal from that district. And then there's some directions to the commissioner as far as administration of the program, such as of application form and providing parents of students that are participating with explanation of the allowable uses for the funds and what their responsibilities and duties are. Then the commissioner has to also adopt rules to administer the program that include auditing the ESAs and random audits throughout the year. And then beginning in the 2022-2023 school year, the commissioner will issue ESA cards to the parents so they can make payments or expend for the appropriate services, and then a process to determine and recoup any misspent funds. And then there's trying to think, scope of this program, and that it's an eligible non-public school is considered to be autonomous and not an agent of the state or federal government. Therefore, the commissioner or agency or any other government agency is prohibited from regulating the educational program at a non-public school. And then creating this program, the ESA program is not expanding the regulatory authority of the state to these non-public organizations or schools if they are serving students within ESA, and that that the service providers and non-public schools are given their maximum freedom to provide for the needs of the students that are using their services through the use of the ESA. Then next, it gets us to the appropriation sections, which will be covered in the spreadsheet walkthrough by the fiscal analyst.
Ms. Para and Ms. Lewis, thank you for that. I'm going to suggest everybody get up, take 5 minutes, come back in 5 minutes. And Ms. Para and Ms. Lewis, catch your breath, because so you got the next two sections too. So take 5 minutes, everybody, come back. I got 2:11, come back about 2:16, we'll start up again, all right? So we'll recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. Ready? Okay, we're back. So we're on section 3, back to with teachers. Article 3 is with teachers, of course, Miss Para and Miss Lewis. Please continue. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Article 3, Section 1, which starts on page R1 of that article. It's the first of the Teachers of Color sections, and this first one, Codes and Use section of law, states that the purpose is to set state goals for increasing the percentage of teachers of color and American Indian teachers, and ensure all students have access to effective and diverse teachers who reflect the diversity of students. It sets the goal at increasing the percentage by at least 2 points per year, and it requires the Professional Educator Licensing and Standards Board, PELSB, to report on aggregate outcomes of state programs related to the preparation or retention of diverse teachers. Section 2 on page R2 is also a new statute that would require a school board to adopt a written policy that prohibits discrimination or discipline for a teacher or principal for incorporating into the curriculum contributions by persons in a protected class.
Mr. Chair, members, on R2, Senate Section 1 is a requirement that a district give a teacher that was physically assaulted by a student a copy of the report that the district submits to the commissioner. Section 2, we actually already talked about in Article 2. Then on page R4, Section 3 is a requirement that paraprofessional that's assigned to work alone or on a regular basis with the student with a disability that has that paraprofessional has a legitimate interest in knowing the student's history of violent behavior.
Mr. Chair and members, Section 3 on the House side, starting on page R4, requires a teacher to hold a license or permission aligned to the content area and scope of the teacher's assignment to provide instruction in a public school or charter school. The next several sections amend definitions in the licensing chapter. So the first is the definition of teacher, which is amended by adding a reference to permission. Section 6 adds licensure area to the definition of field. Section 6 amends the definition of shortage area by referencing the percentage of Indigenous teachers and teachers of color in each economic development region, and the percentage of students in kindergarten through grade 12 who are Indigenous or of color. Section 7 amends the definition of teacher preparation program by striking the language on entities that can provide teacher preparation programs. Section 8 states that teacher preparation program providers include post-secondary institutions and alternative teacher preparation program providers. Section 9 defines a district as a public school district or charter school for purposes of PELSB's activities.
And Mr. Chair, members, at the bottom of R5 is Senate Section 4, and it provides a definition for professional license, and it means a Tier 1, Tier 2, 3, or Tier 4 license issued by PELSB. Section 5 of the Senate file is a direction to PELSB to encourage Minnesota teacher preparation program providers to develop programs in licensure areas where currently there are no teacher preparation programs existing in the state. And then the board is encouraging those programs to have at least 80% of the required coursework be available online. And if there is an in-state approved teacher preparation program, or if one is not established in Minnesota, then the board is to identify out-of-state programs with national accreditation and encourage to have those with the majority of their coursework available online, and post that information on the on PELSB's website.
Mr. Chair and members, Section 10 on the House side starts on page R6. This is a new statute on teacher preparation providers. The first subdivision says that the purpose is for PELSB to approve teacher preparation providers and programs that are a means to acquiring a Tier 2 license and prepare for acquiring a Tier 3 license in order to provide alternative pathways toward licensure outside of the traditional means, improve ethnic and cultural diversity in the classroom, and close the achievement gap. Much of the remaining language in this section is currently in different statutes, and it's being recodified here. Section 11 on teachers on page R9 makes a technical change to the definition of teachers and states that this definition does not apply to sections 122A05 to 122A093, which relate to PELSB. Section 12 modifies the definition of qualified teacher by allowing a teacher to be qualified by holding either a license or a permission. Section 13 requires PELSB to issue licenses to substitute teach to qualifying applicants. It allows PELSB to issue a short call substitute teaching license to an applicant who is enrolled in and making satisfactory progress in a non-Minnesota teacher program, and replaces a reference to continuing education clock hours with renewal requirements. Section 14, background studies, modifies background studies requirements by requiring PELSB and BOSA, which is the Board of School Administrators, to initiate rather than obtain a background study. Changes provision on obtaining the checks through Department of Human Services from requirement to a permission, and adds BOSA to that Human Services provision. Section 15 Section 15 is licensure via portfolio subdivision 10 of 122A18, and that's on page R10. It limits licensure via portfolio to a tier 3 license or to add a licensure field to a tier 3 or 4 license. And it changes the timeline for Pelsby to review the portfolio. Section 16 is the first of the several provisions that change the tiered licensure statutes. So this one is tier 1. And it requires the application for the tier 1 license to be submitted jointly by the applicants and the district. And then the fee would have to be paid for by either the district or the applicant. And the Senate has a different language for this same subdivision.
Mr. Chair, members, Section 6 of the Senate file strikes the requirement that a district or charter school has to post a position and be unable to hire a acceptable teacher with a tier 2, 3, or 4 license before they can hire a tier 1 licensed teacher.
Mr. Chair and members, continuing with the tier 1 statute on page R12, section 17 modifies the exemption from the bachelor's degree requirement for a tier 1 license by replacing the reference to career technical education, that's CTE, or a career pathway course of study to a specific exemption under state statute or rule. Section 18 establishes the exemptions for the bachelor's degree requirement for the tier 1 license to teach CTE courses, world languages and culture and art, and applicants enrolled in a state-approved teacher preparation program classified as a residency model with model leads to a bachelor's degree.
And Mr. Chair, members, Senate Section 7 on page R13 amends the requirement for if you rehiring or renewing a tier 1 licensed teacher, that it strikes the same requirement that was there for hiring them in the first place, where they had to post the position and be unable to hire an acceptable teacher with a tier 2, 3, or 4 license.
Mr. Chair and members, the House language on this provision, it eliminates the provision that allows a board to submit written comments to a district or charter school that requested the tier 1 license renewal. It also eliminates the requirement that a tier 1 teacher take a content exam to renew the license, and requires the district to demonstrate professional development opportunities and other supports were provided to a tier 1 teacher in order for that teacher to move to a higher tier of license. It eliminates the unlimited renewals for CTE teachers and teachers that fill shortage areas, but retains an exception for a district or charter school that can show good cause for additional renewals. Section 20 is tier 1, continuing their subdivision for 122A181, allows Pelsby to begin reviewing the applications before July 1, but it eliminates the requirement that Pelsby make the decision within 30 days. Section 21 eliminates the exclusion of tier 1 teachers from the definition of teacher, which would allow the tier 1 teachers to be in the same bargaining unit as other teachers for purposes of collective bargaining. Section 22 replaces the requirement that a tier 1 teacher participate in an employing district's mentorship program and professional development program with a requirement that the district provide tier 1 teacher mentorship that is aligned to board adopted criteria and professional development opportunities. Sections 23 and 24 relate to tier 2 licenses, and that starts on page R14. These two sections together modify the requirements for a tier 2 license. Under current law, an applicant has to have a bachelor's degree or to teach CTE, certain experience, and be enrolled in a Minnesota approved teacher preparation program, a master's degree, or meet 2 of 5 requirements. These sections allow an applicant who is enrolled in a teacher preparation program that is approved by either Minnesota or another state to obtain a tier 2 license without the advanced coursework, field-specific training, teaching experience, or passing scores on pedagogy and content exam. These sections also retain the bachelor's degree exemption for CTE teachers and expand the exemption for certain teachers, and requires Pelsby to adopt and revise rules regarding the qualifications and determinations for applicants exempt from paragraph A, which is that bachelor's requirement. Section 25, still tier 2 license, limits the renewal of a tier 2 license to 2 rather than 3, but allows a license to teach CTE to be renewed unlimited times. Requires Pellsby to adopt rules establishing good cause justifications for initial renewals. Requires district to offer professional development opportunities and other supports to a tier 2 teacher in order for that teacher to renew the license, and requires a tier 2 teacher to participate in cultural competency training and mental illness training to renew the license. Section 26, which is tier 2, still page R16, allows Pellsby to begin reviewing the applications before July 1 and eliminates that 30-day requirement to review the application. Section 27 replaces the requirement that a tier 2 teacher participate in the district's mentorship program and professional development, and instead the district would have to provide the teacher with mentorship aligned to board adopted criteria and professional development opportunities. Section 28 starts the tier 3 changes, and that's on page R17. It eliminates the licensure exams as a requirement for a tier 3 license and broadens the exemption from a bachelor's degree to include a teacher teaching any course exempt by statute or rule. Section 29 allows an applicant who completed a teacher preparation program approved by another state, territory, or country that includes field-specific student teaching to qualify for a tier 3 license, and limits the pathway to a tier 3 based on 3 years of teaching experience under a tier 2 license and evidence of summative evaluations that didn't place the teacher on an improvement process. That would be only open to candidates who qualify under the definition of shortage area as filling a shortage of teachers of color or Indigenous teachers. Section 30 expands the exemption from the bachelor's degree for certain teachers and requires Pellsby to adopt and revise rules regarding the qualifications and determinations for applicants exempt from that bachelor's degree requirement. Section 31 requires the tier 3 teacher to meet initial teacher renewal requirements to renew the license. Section 32, this is the first of the tier 4 provisions, and that starts on page R19. This requires teaching experience to be as a teacher of record to obtain the tier 4 license. It eliminates the use of the teacher evaluation, the district evaluation, in the licensure process, and requires an applicant with a tier 3 license to complete initial teacher renewal requirements. Section 33 requires a tier 4 teacher to complete continuing teacher renewal requirements to renew a license. Section 34 is on the licensure tests, and this eliminates the requirement that a tier 4 teacher pass the skills exam and that a tier 3 teacher pass pedagogy and content exams. It allows the tier 4 applicant to meet the pedagogy and content exam requirements with the performance assessments and to meet content exam requirements with an exam taken in a different state. It allows applicants who have completed a teacher preparation program in a different state and passed the licensure exams in that state to obtain a Minnesota license without passing a similar Minnesota exam. It eliminates the requirement that a tier 3 elementary school teacher pass the test assessing knowledge, skill, and ability in reading instruction. It strikes the exemption from reading, writing, and math skills for non-native English speakers applying for certain licenses. It requires testing centers to provide regular opportunities for extended time content and pedagogy exams. It requires a candidate who has not passed a required exam after 2 attempts to be allowed to retake the exam free. Section 35 requires the teacher preparation provider to report on supports provided to persons in their programs who didn't pass the license exams and request remedial assistance. It requires the providers to provide remedial assistance on any licensing exam, and allows the district to provide remedial assistance to employees who completed a teacher preparation program but haven't passed the licensing exam. Section 36 on expiration and renewal of licenses starts on page R21. Subdivision 1 eliminates the requirement that tier 3 and 4 teachers renewing licenses show their district performance reviews for at least 1 school year or complete additional preparation. Subdivision 3 removes the cultural competence and practice in meeting the needs of English learners from professional growth requirement. That becomes a standalone requirement. You'll see in subdivision 7 for the cultural competency, and subdivision 8 requires PELSI to adopt and revise rules that require all tier 3 and 4 teachers to have training on meeting the needs of multilingual learners. Subdivision 5 strikes the requirement that rules in reading preparation be approved by law and take effect. Subdivision 9 requires PELSI to adopt and revise rules on standards for all mandatory renewal requirements. It requires all trainings necessary for renewal to meet board requirements, and requires training provided outside of a district, charter school, cooperative unit, or state agency to be approved by PELSI. Section 37 allows teacher preparation programs for bilingual and English as a second language teachers to be provided outside of colleges or universities. Section 38 includes community education teachers in the definition of teachers for purposes of tenure or continuing contract, which would allow them to become tenured or have continuing contracts.
Mr. Chair, members, on R24, Senate Section 8 prohibits a school district from giving preference in the hiring or dismissal of a teacher based on the teacher seniority, and directs the school district to annually report all new teacher hires and terminations, including layoffs, by race and ethnicity, reporting those to PELSB.
Mr. Chair and members, their next several sections amend statutes, sections 122A40, 122A41, which are the 40 statute is for continuing contracts, which is for districts and cities outside the first class, and 122A41 is for the districts in the cities of the first class. So it'll I'll signal when I'm saying when I'm summarizing the provision for something similar that I've already discussed in the parallel statute. So the first is section 39, page R24. The change that you see on paragraph F on page R25 modifies the probationary period for a teacher who was taught for 3 consecutive years in a single school district or charter school in Minnesota or another state by allowing the teacher to obtain continuing contract status after serving the 1-year probationary period. This would be effective for collective bargaining agreements effective July 1, 2021 and later. And then paragraph G allows a school board to renew a probationary teacher while placing teachers that do have continuing contracts on an unrequested leave of absence under a qualifying plan, which I will summarize in a later provision. And this one would be effective the day following final enactment. Section 40 requires districts to adopt a rubric of performance standards for teacher practice that is based on professional teaching standards, established in rule, including it includes culturally responsive methodologies and provides common descriptions of effectiveness using at least 3 levels of performance. Section 41, which is on page R28, adds a new paragraph, and it allows a qualifying plan to exempt up to 5% of teachers in the district from unrequested leave of absence or non-renewal, regardless of the teacher's probationary status or seniority, if there is a written agreement on a plan by October 1 of each school year.
Ms. Chair, members, the Senate Section 9 prohibits the plan agreed to between the school board and the exclusive bargaining representative of the teachers regarding unrequested leave of absence. It prohibits that plan from requiring the school board to place the teacher on that unrequested leave of absence first based on their tier of licensure.
Mr. Chair and members, section 42 on page R28 establishes the requirements for a plan that would exempt up to 5% of teachers from unrequested leave of absence or non-renewal. The plan would establish a committee to select the teachers to receive the exemption. A teacher that receives the exemption must have excellent teaching performance and must be a member of a protected class that is underrepresented in the district or among licensed teachers in Minnesota. and that has experienced systemic barriers to entering and remaining in the teacher profession. And it sets other requirements for the selection process. Section 43, which is on page R29. This now is getting into the districts in the city of the first class. So this is the probationary period provision that I discussed for districts outside the city of the first class, modifying the length of the probationary period for a teacher, and then allowing the school board to renew a probationary teacher if it has adopted a qualifying plan. Section 44 is the performance standard provision described before, just applying it now to the districts in the cities of the first class. Section 45, again, this is similar to discussed above, allowing a qualifying plan to exempt up to 5% of the teachers in the district from unrequested leave of absence if there's no written agreement by October 1.
And then the Senate Section 10 on R33 is similar to what I described above as far as, but applicable to school districts and cities of first class, about the plan that's negotiated for the unrequested leave of absence, and the ability or the plan cannot include putting people or teachers on unrequested leave of absence first based on their tier of licensure.
Mr. Chair, member, section 46 on page R33, again, it describes it has the requirements for a plan to exempt up to 5% of teachers.
And Mr. Chair, members, on R34, Senate section 11 is the parallel provision for school districts and cities of first class regarding hiring and dismissing teachers and their seniority, as well as the report to Pelsby on all the hiring and terminations and the reporting them based on race and ethnicity. Then the bottom of R34, House Section 47 and Senate Section 12 are quite similar, that they're both related to the Come Teach in Minnesota hiring bonuses, and that eligibility is for the district or the charter school verifies that hiring bonus is given to a teacher who either qualifies or that for a first license in another state, and then they qualify for a tier 1 tier 3 or tier 4 Minnesota license, that they've moved to an economic development region in Minnesota where they were hired, and that they belong to a racial or ethnic group that is underrepresented among teachers compared to the students in the district or school where they're going to teach. It has a minimum bonus amount of $2,500 and a maximum of $5,000 to the teacher who meets those eligibility requirements. And then if they meet the eligibility requirements of a licensure shortage area in the economic development region where the school is located, they may be offered a signing bonus of a minimum of $4,000 and a maximum of $8,000. And they're paid half the bonus when starting employment, and then half after completing 4 years of service in that district. And they've demonstrated teaching effectiveness and are not on a professional improvement plan. If they don't complete their first year upon receiving that bonus, they need to repay the hiring bonus. And then the Senate has language that a district may include a signing and a retention bonus in their achievement and integration plan. Then there's direction to the commissioner to establish a process for districts and schools to seek reimbursement for those hiring bonuses if the teacher is required to repay them. And then the commissioner has to provide guidance to the districts to seek repayment and conduct a pilot program beginning in the 2022-2023 biennium to work on the feasibility of the program.
Mr. Chair, members, the House also includes language new subdivision 5, which establishes an account in the special revenue fund for this program. And then the next section, section 48 on the House side and section 13 on the Senate side on page R36. These look to be the same. Requires districts to use staff development revenue, which is 2% of basic revenue for teacher mentorship under section 122A70, subdivision 1. Current law requires revenue to be used for this purpose only if extra funds remain after being used for other purposes. So that's where you see the striking the language on line 138, 22, and moving that up to paragraph A. Section 49 on the House side clarifies the definition of eligible student for purposes of the American Indian Teacher Preparation Grant Program. Section 50 authorizes program funding under the American Indian Teacher Preparation Program to be used for eligible American Indian student scholarships.
Mr. Chair, members, then Senate Section 14, it starts on the bottom of page R37, allows the Collaborative Urban and Greater Minnesota Educators of Color Grant Program to go to programs that increase the number of teacher candidates of color who are American Indian and or teacher of color or who are American Indian that meets the requirements of tier 1, 2, or 3. Originally, it was just tier 3 licensure. And also go to programs that are alternative teacher preparation programs in Minnesota. Section 15 of the Senate file, which is on R38, allows those same grants to go to programs based on the number or percentage, the addition of teachers of color or American Indian being supported by the program, and it strikes language giving priority and awarding grants to institutions that received grants originally under the 2017 laws and the future priority to newly funded programs.
Mr. Chair, members, section 51 on page R38 requires the Collaborative Urban and Greater Minnesota Educators of Color Grant Program. Requires those grants to be awarded for a 2-year grant period. Section 52 modifies the reporting dates. Section 53, this is the teacher mentorship statute, and both bodies include this provision, which requires a district to develop teacher mentoring program for teachers new to the profession or district, and it requires it eliminates the requirement that Pellsby provide resources and assistance to new mentorship sites. And this section would be effective July 1, 2021. Section 54, the House and Senate have similar provisions, but the House provision modifies, they both modify the concurrent enrollment teacher training statute by clarifying the partnership members' fiscal host and funding uses.
I think the only correct difference is I think it's capitalization, and that provided some confusion on R41, where the House file capitalizes Minnesota State colleges and universities, where the Senate has lowercase, and it's a confusion of what does that mean? Is it the system that you're talking about, or is the U included in that? Then on page R43 is the Senate section 18, which is a list of sections for teacher and classroom safety that are coded elsewhere. And it's a listing of those particular sections and where they are, what they do.
Mr. Chair and members, section 55 on the House side, page R44, requires principal evaluations to support and improve a principal's culturally responsive leadership practices. Section 56 amends the Individualized Education Programs statute, that's IEP. And you'll see the new language on page R47. Requires a paraprofessional assigned to work alone with a student with a disability to be given paid time or time during the school day to review the student's IEP or be briefed on the student's specific needs. It requires the paraprofessional to be given up to 5 days after a transfer student arrives to review the student's IEP. And it requires a paraprofessional and certain other district staff employed to work to support students with disabilities to be provided at least 16 hours of paid orientation or professional development each year. Section 57 establishes a paraprofessional training aid starting in fiscal year 22. That would be $196 per paraprofessional, Title I aid, and other instructional support staff. And that aid would have to be for training under 125A08. Section 58. This amends Section 179A03, which is part of the Public Employment Labor Relations Act. And it amends the definition of terms and conditions of employment, which is what public employers and public employees must bargain over. It would add class sizes, student testing, and student to personnel ratios in Minnesota school districts, the mandatory terms and conditions of employment for purposes of collective bargaining. It would require school districts and union representatives of school district public employees to meet and negotiate over these terms. This would also apply to charter school class sizes. Section 59 is grants for grow your own programs. Subdivision 1 would establish the grants for 3 types of grow your own programs to develop a teaching workforce that more closely reflects a diverse student population and ensure equitable access to effective and diverse teachers. So generally 3 types of grow your own programs. One is for residency programs. The second is for programs serving adults. So those are for districts or Head Start programs to apply for those grants. And subdivision 5 is for programs serving secondary school students. This will also establish an account in the special revenue fund for these grow your own programs.
Mr. Chair, member, Section 19 of the Senate files on R51, that is a direction to Pellsby to extend by 6 months any calendar year 2021 deadline for completing licensure renewal requirements because of interruptions due to COVID. Then Section 20 is a short call substitute teacher pilot program that allows a school district to employ a person who meets the requirements of under the Tier 1 licensure, where they don't have to have a bachelor's degree, allow those folks to be hired as a short call substitute in any content area, not just a career and tech area course. And then the district will request a background check on that teacher, and then the same requirements as far as how long that person can replace a teacher record is the same as a short call substitute teacher. And then subsequently, the district is reporting to Pellsby on all the people it employs under this pilot program, and the provision is effective for the current school year, next school year, and then the 2022-2023 school year. And then that gets us to the appropriation sections, which are covered in and discussed in the spreadsheet walkthrough.
Thank you. Well, you two are up one more time for charter schools, then we'll break and go to Tim and Mr. Strom and Ms. Gilsa. So if you want to keep going, I'll shut up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Article 4 is the charter school article. This one is much shorter. So Section 1 on the House side, that's page R1 in the definitions. There's new definitions of charter management organization, education management organization, online education service provider. On page R2, section 2, and actually the next several sections state what state laws charter schools are subject to as if they were districts. So section 2 requires charter schools to comply with statutes on alternatives to suspension and uniform municipal contracting law. Section 3 requires charter schools to comply with the Education for English Learners Act. Section 4 requires them to comply with the corporal punishment statute. Section 5 applies to authorizers, and it makes the term of a charter school authorizer open-ended instead of being limited to 5 years.
Then on R4, as the section you've been waiting for since we started in Article 2, it's section 29 is the Senate section that allows a school district that is a charter school authorizer to submit a new written promise that satisfied their requirements, their initial application requirements to the commissioner during their 5-year review. Section 6 of the House file and section 30, again from Article 2 of the Senate file, is requirements for corrective action against a charter school authorizer, and that the plan for the authorizer cannot last more than 130 business days, and it can allow the commissioner to prohibit authorizer that's on this corrective plan from accepting a charter school transfer application or an application to establish a new charter school. Then it also requires the commissioner to notify the authorizer in writing that they've been placed on the corrective action plan and include any findings that subjected the authorizer to that plan at the end of, or that they're subject to at the end of that plan. And then the commissioner has to assist the charter school if its authorizer's ability to charter that school is terminated, and allows the board of directors to submit a request to the commissioner for transfer to a new authorizer without having to first seek the approval of that current authorizer that's under corrective action.
Mr. Chair and members, section 7 on the House side on page R5 amends the authorizer withdrawal requirements. Section 8 requires an application to establish a charter school to include a market need and demand study that quantifies demand for the new school, grade, or site expansion or preschool program, and includes other market need and demand information. Section 9 requires an authorizer's affidavit to include market research on the need, demand, and potential market for a proposed charter school. Section 10 requires an authorizer approving a school's application to add grades or primary enrollment sites to include a market need and demand study in the supplemental affidavit filed with the commissioner. Section 11 requires charter school admissions to be free to a resident of Minnesota and gives enrollment preference to Minnesota residents over out-of-state residents. Section 12 changes the statutory definition of teacher referenced in the requirement to employ necessary teachers, and allows charter schools to contract with a cooperative to provide necessary teachers. Section 13, which is on page R10, requires a charter school to lease space from the owner of the space instead of subleasing space. Section 14 requires a charter management organization or educational management organization to submit an audit report to the commissioner annually by December 31st. And section 15 strikes an obsolete reference to the chapter on cooperatives. And that wraps up Article 4.
Okay, thank you very much. So next up is under special education, which is Article 5 of the House, Article 4 of the Senate, is Mr. Strom and Ms. Chilseth. So whoever wants to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. So Article 4, special education on the Senate side, and then it's Article 5, special education on the House side. On page 1, it requires that a pupil who is medically fragile and who requires clinical nursing services at home must receive clinical nursing services care at school or while being transported to and from school.
Mr. Chair, members, Article 5, Section 1 of the House bill is one of several provisions that modifies special education aid for charter schools. This provision essentially creates an hourly, as part of a number of provisions that create an hourly cap for the amount a charter school can bill back the portion of its unreimbursed costs that are billed back to the resident school district. And this section in Section 1 creates an additional aid that phases out over a time period up through fiscal year 26 to soften the impact of the changes later in the article. Section 2 clarifies that a third party has an obligation to pay for health-related services when those services are provided by a qualified school district, charter school, or cooperative unit. Under current law, third-party reimbursement is essentially when the health provider for the family is charged by the school district for a health-related service. For nearly all instances, that third-party payer is the government health plan for that student. And essentially those monies then under the third-party reimbursement go to the school district to pay for the cost of a health-related service related to that child's education. Section 3 encourages charter schools to participate in the third-party billing and authorizes the Commissioner of Education to provide training and assistance to charter schools to help them with the third-party billing. Section 4 is a financial provision that increases the cross-subsidy aid for charter schools. When you get to the fiscal worksheets, you'll see the impact of this provision, but essentially the unreimbursed portion of the special education costs for each district are called the cross-subsidy. The current law reimburses 6.43% of that difference. This provision would increase that to 9.33% for fiscal 22 and to 12.11% for fiscal 23 and later. Section 5 goes under the heading of alternative attendance programs. These are how the adjustments are made for a variety of purposes. For what's being amended here, this has to do with the adjustment for the unreimbursed special education costs that a charter school bills back to the resident district. Under current law, that the charter school receives, for most charter schools, receives 90% of their unreimbursed costs. 80 percentage points of that come from the resident district and 10% from the state. This provision would put an additional cap on the amount that could be charged back to the resident district by limiting the hourly costs of service. And it phases in that cap, establishing it first at 200% of the statewide hourly service rate, reducing it to 175%, then 150%, and then in fiscal 27 and later at no more than 125% of the service rate. And there are 3 rate structures depending on where the charter school is physically located. There's a statewide rate for all those but the charter schools in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and then separate rates for Minneapolis and St. Paul's charter schools. Section 6, House and Senate have a similar concept but somewhat different language. This requires the Commissioner of Education as well as school districts and charter schools to collaborate with the families to address the impact of learning disruptions to the COVID-19 restrictions. There are requirements that on the House side, and Ms. Chilseth can talk about the Senate changes, but on the House side, essentially requiring the IEPs for the students to be redone to factor in what additional services will be necessary for the students to replace the learning loss that took place.
Thank you, Mr. Strom. And this is on R8, and the Senate gives examples of the services and supports that can be used. And then The next section 3 on the Senate side is report on behavioral health service reimbursement. Directs the commissioners of education and human services to consult with stakeholders to find strategies to streamline access and reimbursement for behavioral health services for children with an IEP or an individualized family service plan who are enrolled in medical assistance. And this is similar to the House, but the House requires the commissioner to review other states' models. And Mr. Strom might want to talk more on that.
Mr. Chair, members, yes, so the House requirement is just slightly more broad in its mandate to the 2 commissioners. And Mr. Chair, members, the article ends with the appropriations article, and we'll walk through those amounts when we get to the spreadsheets.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like Ms. Parra, you're back up. You're staying on, Ms. Gilseth. So Ms. Parra and Ms. Gilseth, health and safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Yes, Article 6, Health and Safety, which is Senate Article 5, page R1, Section 1 on the House side, replaces the encouragement for districts to provide mental health instruction with a requirement. It requires a district or charter school providing instruction on preventing suicide or self-harm to use the resources provided by the commissioner or other evidence-based instruction. And this would be effective July 1, 2022. Section 2 requires districts to provide instruction to help students identify, prevent, and reduce prohibited conduct and take other action to create a safe and supportive school environment. And I should note, the next couple of this provision as well as the next one are part of the school student bullying policy statute. Section 3 on page R2 requires the commissioner to develop and maintain resources to help districts and schools implement strategies for a positive school climate and use social emotional learning. It also requires the commissioner to develop and adopt state level social emotional learning standards. Section 4 on page R3 defines mental health and describes comprehensive school mental health systems. Section 5 defines the Minnesota multi-tiered systems of supports as a systemic continuous improvement framework for ensuring positive social, emotional, behavioral, developmental, and academic outcomes for every student, and lists required components of the framework. Section 6, the House and Senate have similar language. This is requiring a seizure training and action plan. It requires a school district or charter school where a student with a seizure disorder and prescribed seizure medication is enrolled to have a seizure action plan that identifies a school nurse or designated individual who can administer seizure medication and require training on seizures. Subdivision 2 requires a district or charter school to provide all licensed school nurses or other designated individuals and other staff with self-study materials on seizure disorders. And this would be effective for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you, Ms. Parra. I would add that the Senate defines seizure action plan and allows a school district or charter school to consult with the Commissioner of Health on training resources. And then the next section that was in the Senate omnibus was notification of environmental hazards, and Ms. Hofer will talk about that in Article 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Section 7 on page R5 establishes a new school aid for student support personnel, and this would be for the aid would be for new positions, and the student support services personnel would include school counselors, school psychologists, school social workers, school nurses, and chemical dependency counselors. The entities eligible for this are school districts, charter schools, and cooperative units. And the aid is for district, it's equal to the greater of $31,500, which would be for the smaller districts, or $20 per pupil enrolled in October 1. Charter schools would also receive $20 per pupil, and cooperative programs $6 per pupil. The aid would be used to hire student support personnel and newly created positions. And some reporting would be required in subdivision 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Section 3 is moved to Article 7. It's the Safe Schools revenue, and Ms. Hofer will talk about that next article. And then Section 4 is the appropriations, and that will be talked about at the end again. Oh, that completes that article. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. So next up, facilities, which is Section 7, Article 7 of the House, Article 6, Senate, and Section 7 in side-by-sides facilities. Mr. Strom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Article 7 is the facilities article. Sections 1 of the House bill and Article 5, Section 2 of the Senate bill are the same. They require a school to notify its staff, students, and parents if it receives notification of an environmental hazard from the Department of Health or Pollution Control Agency.
Members, in the middle of page R1 is a Senate-only section. This would require school boards to publish on their websites information about consulting fees that exceed $25,000 and are recorded under the UFARS Code 305. It also requires a statement that additional information can be available upon request. Towards the bottom of page R1 are Section 2 of the House bill and Section 2 of the Senate bill. These are identical sections. Both of the sections relate to long-term facilities maintenance revenue. What this does is this would expand the authority that's under current law. Under current law, a school district may include in its long-term facilities maintenance levy authority the revenue for intermediate districts and cooperative districts to which it's a member. This would expand that to include joint powers districts. There's also a new paragraph B, and this would allow the resolution by the districts to specify which member districts of the intermediate, cooperative, or joint powers unit will provide levy authority for pay-as-you-go long-term facilities maintenance projects, and it would require that any of the projects that are bonded for would be the obligation of all member districts. On page R2 is another similar provision between the House and the Senate, Section 3 in both bills. You'll see the changes in Section 3. These begin to appear on page R3. The language here is nearly identical. Both of the bills would expand the building lease authority. Under current law, school districts can levy an additional $65 per student for intermediate school districts, and this would expand that authority to include cooperative units and joint powers districts. The difference between the House and Senate language you can see in the middle of page R3. The House has stricken some obsolete language related to the ties levy. And members, the next change is on page R4. So both the House and the Senate modify the Safe Schools Levy Program. In the Senate bill, Section 3, there are some changes to the revenue program itself, and the revenue is expanded, while the House keeps the levy authority at $36 per pupil for districts and an additional $15 for districts that are members of intermediate schools. On the Senate side, Section 3 phases in an increase to Safe Schools revenue for school districts, and it makes the program both an aid and a levy program. So by fiscal year 2024, school districts will have Safe Schools revenue of up to $47 per adjusted pupil unit, and of this, up to $37 would be an equalized levy. Towards the bottom of page R4, you can see the beginning of the Cooperative Safe Schools revenue. Under current law, only school districts that are members of intermediates may levy $15 of additional authority. What this section does is this expands to a revenue program, so there would be both an aid and a levy component. And it also expands the number of eligible cooperative units from just intermediates to all cooperative units. And so for the revenue component, it increases that from $15 to a phased in $26 per student by fiscal year 2024. And of that amount, up to $20 per student would be an equalized levy. On page R5, you can see the changes to the other programs. So the Safe Schools Revenue Program in the Senate bill would expand to include charter schools, non-public schools, and tribal contract schools. And these schools would see Safe Schools revenue phased into $47 per student by fiscal year 2024. On page R6, the Senate modifies the uses of Safe Schools revenue to include school-linked mental health services provided by telemedicine, as well as the costs associated with enhancing cybersecurity for the district's IT systems. And the final changes to the Safe Schools sections, these are similar between the House and the Senate. Both bodies would require that school districts and charter schools, in addition to how they're reporting their Safe Schools costs currently under UFARS, it would require that they provide a breakdown by functional area. And the difference here is the Senate would include cooperative units in that requirement. Members, on page R7 is another Senate-only provision. So this is section 4 of the Senate bill. This would modify the fund transfer authority that was provided last regular session, the 2020 regular session. And so what this would do is this would allow school districts for fiscal year 2021 only to redirect revenue with permission of the school board. The school board would need to adopt a written resolution, and the funds could only be redirected if they were not already assigned to or encumbered by staff salary and benefits or otherwise encumbered by federal law. And members, with that, that gets us to the middle of page R8, which is section 5 in the House bill and section 5 in the Senate bill. And these are the appropriations articles that Ms. Adrians and I will speak to in a little bit. So with that, that concludes this article.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So next section, section 8, Articles 8 of House, Article 7 Senate. Nutrition and libraries, that's Mr. Strong and Ms. Jilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Article 8, sections 1 of and sections Article 7, section 1 of the Senate are similar with the same intent. Both of these bills deal with the language regarding lunch shaming. Both changed Minnesota statutes to make more clear what kinds of behavior are acceptable and what aren't. There are similar provisions that this conference committee has seen in past years. Let's see here. And most of the changes are either at the very beginning or on the respectful treatment subdivision, which begins on page R3 with subdivisions 5 of the House and Senate being quite similar. Section 2 of the House bill, Mr. Chair, has to do with the school breakfast program. Under current law, most of the funding for school breakfast comes from the federal government, but the state does kick in some additional resources as well. One group that's currently eligible for free breakfast, former Senator Alice Johnson was the author of this provision, was fully paid breakfast for all kindergarten students. That was expanded a few years back to all VPK students as well. And the provision here would include the early childhood special education students as well in the free breakfast category for purposes of the state reimbursement. Section 3 of the House bill, starting on the top of page R5, is a definition of sorts, a description of what a school library and media center is. Section 4 of the House bill was added by floor amendment and is limitations on digital and online resources, puts requirements both on the schools and the public organizations, school districts, charter schools, libraries, and universities that are offering digital online services to ensure that safety policies regarding content are being met. Turning to page R6 is the start of several provisions related to the regional public library system. As members know, the public libraries are primarily county or city funded operations. The state, however, has for many years supported overarching organizations called the regional library systems. There's 12 regional library systems, and there's funding in the K-12 base each year for the programs of the regional library systems. These changes get to the distribution of funds under that regional library formula for the 12 regional systems. On page R6 in section 5 is clarifying cross-reference. A number of years ago, about a decade ago, the maintenance of effort that counties were required to do for their library programs was changed. And this statute didn't reflect that change in the same manner as the change that went in the tax code. So you'll see on lines 201.1 and 2, the cross-reference back to the chapter 275. So that it's clear what the level of maintenance of effort is. Section 6 of the House bill and 2 of the Senate bill have to do with that distribution formula. Currently, there's a variety of factors under which the money is distributed. This increases from 5 to 15% the amount of funds that are available on a systems basis. And then in the next section, decreases from 25% to 15% the amount of funds that are distributed on the tax base of each of the 12 regional library systems. So those two adjustments together balance back to 100%, and those alter the way that money is distributed from the state to each of the 12 regional library systems. Section 8 clarifies the population count that's used for the public library formula, and it essentially conforms it so that the most recent year that's fully available at the time the awards are made is the one that's used for the calculation. Section 9 of the House bill, which is on page R8, has to do with the community eligibility provision school sites. Under the federal school lunch program, a site that's more than 40% free and reduced lunch students can join something called the CEP, the Community Eligibility Provision Program. And what that does is that allows the school to not charge a fee to any of the students who are eating lunch or breakfast at that site. The formula that the federal government established works well for all school sites with more than 61.2% of their students eligible for free and reduced lunch. But for those between 40 and 61.2%, some of those districts are caught short if they go into the program. And this essentially would allow the small amount of aid, about $2.5 million of aid in fiscal year 2023 to be paid to those districts as a way to encourage them to participate in the CEP program. Section 10 of the House bill and Section 5 of the Senate bill are the appropriation sections, and you'll see those on the spreadsheets.
Thank you very much. So that brings us to Section 9, early childhood section. That is Ms. Mock and Ms. Marie Lewis. And from the looks of it, Ms. Marie Lewis, you'll be able to, well, there is a section in there for you. So Ms. Mock, we haven't heard from you yet. Why don't you go right ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll walk through the early childhood provisions. So Section 1 of the House bill designates 10.72% of the total state appropriation to Head Start for federally designated tribal Head Start programs. Section 2 provides that schools have to employ a licensed teacher to provide instruction in school-based early education programs like voluntary pre-kindergarten and school readiness. Section 3 allows allo parents to participate in ECFE programs. Section 4, and I'm on page R4 now. This requires an evaluation of Parent Aware, which is the state's quality rating and improvement system for childcare and early education providers. And Section 4 also directs DHS to develop a plan to learn about and reduce any barriers that prevent providers from pursuing a Parent Aware rating. And I'll just note that this evaluation and plan are currently paid for in the House's HHS omnibus bill. So there are a few early childhood provisions on the House side that are sort of split oddly between the K-12 bill and the HHS bill, and this is one of them. So the policies in this bill, it's paid for in the HHS omnibus bill. There aren't any corresponding Senate provisions in the Senate's education bill, but there are corresponding provisions in the Senate's HHS omnibus bill. So moving on to sections 5, 6, and 7. All three of these sections relate to the voluntary pre-kindergarten and school readiness plus programs. In all three of these sections, there are changes that relate to merging the two programs, voluntary pre-kindergarten and school readiness plus. So section 5 requires that a voluntary pre-kindergarten program has at least one licensed teacher. So under current law, this requirement applies in the school readiness plus program, but does not apply to the voluntary pre-kindergarten program. Section 6 provides that schools that receive voluntary pre-kindergarten and school readiness plus aid currently in fiscal year 21 will continue to do so when the programs are merged. And then Section 7 has language that retains the 4,000 seats in the voluntary pre-kindergarten program. Section 8 on page R10 mandates the kindergarten readiness assessment for all incoming kindergartners. Under current law, schools may choose to provide this assessment but aren't required to do so. Section 9 changes age eligibility for early learning scholarships. So it changes eligibility from children who are 3 to 5 years old to all children who are under the age of 5. Section 10 also affects the early learning scholarship program. This section contains 3 different policy changes. Paragraph A changes how MDE must prioritize applications for the scholarships. Paragraph C lifts the cap on the amount of funding that MDE can designate to Pathway 2 scholarships. And paragraph D decreases the amount of time a scholarship recipient has to enroll in a program before the scholarship cancels. And it decreases that amount of time from 10 months to 3 months. So section 11 on page R13 has nearly identical language to section 1 in Article 8 of the Senate bill. Both sections prohibit a child in a publicly funded preschool or kindergarten program to use a screen, such as a tablet or a smartphone, without engagement from a teacher or other students. These limits are not applied to children who have an individualized family service plan or individualized education program. And this is Ms. Lewis's opportunity to say anything if she would like.
I got nothing.
Sections 12 and 13 of the House bill have technical changes relating to the merger of the voluntary pre-kindergarten and school readiness plus programs. Section 14, this provides that it's the goal of the state for all families to have access to affordable, high quality early care and education programs. And then section 15 establishes a task force to develop strategies to meet this goal. This is another one of those oddly split provisions. So there aren't any comparable provisions to this in the Senate's education bill, but a similar task force is established and paid for in the Senate's HHS omnibus bill. Section 16 on page R19 directs the governor's children's cabinet to develop recommendations on 1, the governance of early care, development, and learning programs, and 2, how such programs could be consolidated into an existing state agency or a new department. Section 17 also gives a direction to the governor's children's cabinet, and it directs the cabinet to evaluate how federal money received under the 3 federal coronavirus relief laws is used to address the state's needs in the area of early childhood education. Sections 18 and 19 of the House bill are appropriations, as is section 2 of Article 8 of the Senate bill, and we'll hear more about those later. And then finally, section 20 on page R26 is a repealer related to the merger of the voluntary pre-kindergarten and school readiness plus programs. And those are the early childhood provisions.
All right, thank you. You two go take a break. And next up is Community Ed and Lifelong Learning, Mr. Strom and Ms. Joseph again. You may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. So this is Article 10 on the House side and Article 9 on the Senate side, Community Education and Lifelong Learning. Section 1 on R1 requires that each district's Community Education Advisory Council create a system to receive and review feedback and input on the use of general community education revenue. It requires that each district's Community Education Advisory Council make written recommendations to the Community Education Director and to the school board on the use of general community education revenue. Section 2, still on R1, is about general community education revenue. For fiscal year 2023 and later, it increases the general community education revenue allowance from $5.42 to $5.97. Section 3 adds supplemental community education aid equal to $3.90 for fiscal year 2023, and then $16.94 for fiscal year 2024 and later, times the district's average daily membership for the school year. And then Section 4 is still on R1. It authorizes the use of community education revenue for other programs, such as those offered by non-school organizations. It requires that funds used for other programs be consistent with the purposes of community education programs. And then Section 5 on the Senate side, which is Section 1 on the House side, it relates to state total adult basic education aid. On the Senate side, it clarifies the calculation of adult basic education aid growth rate, and I will defer to Mr. Strom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Jilsa. The House adds a third factor for computing the total adult basic education aid. There's a dollar value in statute, and as Ms. Jilsa said, that grows by a growth factor currently up to 3% per year. The provision that was being added by both bills would make sure that percentage doesn't go negative. And the House adds a second growth factor if for some reason the 3% per year were not to apply, allows the ABE revenue to grow by the growth in the state general education formula as well. Section 2 of the House bill has to do with the high school equivalency tests. These are known usually as the GED tests. There are other kinds of equivalency tests now that are sometimes used by ABE and other programs. There's a small statutory reimbursement to programs for what's referred to as a battery of the tests. Under current law, there was under the statutory ongoing law, the formula provides 60% of the costs for that battery. For the last couple of years, the reimbursement rate's been at 100%. This change on the House side would make that reimbursement rate at 100%. You'll see that effect when the appropriations worksheets are looked at later this afternoon. And Mr. Chair, the last provision in this article is the appropriations sections in Section 3 of the House bill and Section 6 of the Senate bill. And that's it for Articles 10 and.
All right, so Section 11, state agencies. It's you two still. So whoever wants to go. Looks like Ms. Jilset's up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. So this is Article 10 on the Senate Omnibus and Article 11 on the House Omnibus, state agencies. Section 1 on the Senate side precludes the governor from relying on emergency management powers under Minnesota statutes, Section 12.21, for authority to order or authorize the Commissioner of Education to alter school schedules, curtail school activities, or order schools closed. Section 2 on R3, a lot of these relate to Perpich Center for the Arts, makes conforming changes to reflect that the Perpich Center for the Arts education is abolished in other sections of the bill.
And Mr. Chair, members, after Senate Section 6, the next provision, several provisions are from the bill that the board which licenses teachers, Pelsby, brought to the legislature this year. And those consist of the following. In Article 11, Section 1, the overall board membership is increased from 11 to 13 members. In Section 2, the characteristics of the membership is changed. The number of the minimum number of teachers on the board is increased from 6 to 7, and additionally 2 teacher licensure areas are added as well. Section 3 eliminates obsolete language regarding the location of the office. As members of the conference committee probably know, the Board of Teaching used to be housed with the Department of Education. When Pellsby was created, it was thought separate office space might make sense, and Pellsby has subsequently moved into separate offices. So this eliminates obsolete language that led up to the Pellsby seeking its own office space. Section 4 of the House bill requires Pellsby to approve teacher preparation providers that are seeking to prepare candidates for teacher licensure. This is essentially a slight change in the duties regarding the licensure. Section 5 amends the requirements for the registry of licensed teachers. Section 6 is the charge with both Pellsby's ability to create rules and amend its rules. This provision makes clear that Pellsby can revise its rules. It also strikes the requirement that Pellsby adopt rules relating to grade levels to the levels a licensed teacher may teach. Section 7 of the House bill has to do with the permissions and duties, eliminates the annual review requirement for permissions for alternative education program teachers to teach in other content areas. Section 8 changes the date that Pellsby must post its report on teacher preparation programs. It pushes that back a month from June to July, and it also modifies the summary data that's included in the report. Section 9 has to do with teacher preparation program reporting. It clarifies the report on the number of candidates who have not yet passed a content or pedagogy exam, and it modifies the requirement to disaggregate data by eligibility for financial aid. Section 10 is a section having to do with teacher licensure. The teacher license fee is currently $57 for the term of the license. Many teachers have a 5-year license currently. This provision would increase the amount that teachers pay for their license from $57 to $85 for the term of the license, and then adds an additional $8 fee if the teacher uses the online renewal system. Secondly, it puts that $8 fee in a special revenue fund to be used only for technology projects, services, and support of the teacher licensure system.
Section 7 on the Senate bill is the Lola and Rudy Perpich Arts Education Specialists. So this section requires the Department of Education to support services to school districts throughout Minnesota by establishing an arts education specialist position in the unclassified service. And then we jumped from the Senate side, it was Article 2, Section 32, Evidence-Based Education Grants. This is on R12. States that the purpose of this section is to create a process to evaluate the effectiveness of all pre-kindergarten through grade 12 education programs funded by the legislature to the Commissioner of Education for grants to organizations on or after July 1st. It's pretty close with what the House has, but the Senate lays out more requirements needed to apply for a grant. I'm not sure if Mr. Strom wants to add any more than that.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Section 8 on the Senate side requires the Minnesota High School League to have at least a 20-member governing board, and also makes technical corrections. Sections 9 through 11 relate to the Perpich Center again. It makes conforming changes to reflect that the Perpich Center for Arts Education is abolished in other sections of this article. And then Section 12, both the Senate and House are the same, striking obsolete language referring to the licensing division of the Department of Education. And then starting on Section 13, that we have the department tracking spreadsheets, which Ms. Hofer and Miss Adrian's will go through, sorry. And then section 14 on the Senate side is on R23. It abolishes the purpose center on June 30th, 2022. Funds appropriated to the purpose center that are unspent or unencumbered on June 30th, 2022 will lapse to the fund or account from which they were appropriated. Money in a dedicated fund or account of the purpose center on June 30th, 2022 will be transferred to the general fund. And then section 15 is just on the part of the Senate omnibus. It directs the commissioner to request waivers from the federal maintenance of effort requirements under the Consolidated Appropriations Act and the American Rescue Plan Act, and that is on R24. And then to wrap up, starting section 16 is the appropriations, 16 through 19. Mr. Strom, did you want to speak to any of those specifically?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Joseph. I would encourage members to look at the language on the riders in the two bills. We don't need to walk through each of those, but for the agency riders, those don't show up on the tracking sheet as generally as individual amounts. So best for members just to be familiar with what's in the riders on, there's both the top line amount for the agency, but also on each of the individual set asides. Thank you, Ms. Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. And then finally on Article 11, the state agencies, there's a section 20 on the Senate side. It repeals Minnesota statutes and rules regarding the purpose center. And then in addition, the section repeals a subdivision that included an errant cross-reference to a purpose centered statute that was repealed. And that wraps up Article 11 state agencies.
Thank you. So you two are up one more time. So I reached a little agreement with Chair Dabney. What we're going to do is we have to end at 4, so this will be a good time to cut. So we'll go through this last section, section 12, forecast adjustments. And then we're going to adjourn after that, and Chair Dabney will have the gavel for next meeting on Wednesday. That's what we plan to do right now. So now, Ms. Joseph, you're up one last time for section 12, forecast adjustments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We'll try not to take the full 20 minutes. This article is the forecast.
20 minutes for 3 pages, you're in trouble.
Yes. This article simply adjusts the appropriations from the previous year for all of the forecast programs to match the amounts that were in the February 2020 forecast.
Okay, that was beautiful, Mr. Strong. So that's all I have. I'm going to go to Chair Dabney if he has any comments, closing comments for the day. I want to thank all of you for staff for walking through this. It was important to do. These are tough things to do, but very important, very necessary. Thank you for putting them together and walking through them and helping us out. So with that, Chair Dabney.
Chair Chamberlain, thank you, and thank you for doing this today. You're right. It's important. It's not exactly the exciting part of conference committee, but it's important to laying a common base of understanding of what's in the two bills. We'll finish up walking through some spreadsheets tomorrow, having a little conversation with some folks and see where we go from there. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I won't delay this any longer, members and staff. Thank you very much. And you'll be hearing from Chair Dabney and the team over the House. Thank you so much. Have a great night.